Good afternoon. We are live with our holiday edition of Phoenix Rising with Dawn Shanae Collins. I'm your host, Dawn Shanae Collins, and with me is Renee Singleton. Why you so Renee? Caleb.
Hello.
Brother, our special guest, Brother Ronaldo Jacobs Jr.
How you doing?
And then the amazing King Cada.
What's up? What's up?
Chauncey, my son, Dawn Collins' son. All right. So, look, we have an amazing lineup today for our What's Good in the Hood. The illustrious Renee and Caleb are going to talk about what's good, what's going on in the hood with the elections. Ooh, yes. And then we will move forward with our viral news that you can use by King Cada Collins.
Oh, yeah.
And then we're going to do an amazing, informative roundtable discussion with Brother Ronaldo Jacobs Jr. on Black business development. And so it promises to be exciting. Of course, we'll be doing our books of the month and all that jazz. And the Yeah, I Said It is going to be about that anti-slavery bill that never was. All right. And so, what's good in the hood? What's going on with the elections?
That's a good question, Dawn. I have some questions of my friend here, Caleb. I was asking him yesterday about what happened. Caleb was over in Georgia for that the election that didn't happen, that should have happened, and but I do want to tell us a little bit about that. We'll just kind of stretch the hood to include Georgia because I was really hoping and banking on that. I'm disappointed, but now we still have a little bit of something that's happening in Georgia with Reverend Warnock fighting to keep his Senate seat against this interloping nut that they got.
Respectful.
Okay, you're right. You're absolutely right. I'm going to clean it up. So what's good in the hood? I think of our electorate, people who have the vote, as our most important community asset. And I do have to wonder what's going on with that community asset, what's going on with the electorate in the past election. So I'm going to turn it over to my friend who knows all things election in the United States.
Thank you. So for the past 2 weeks, I was on assignment in Georgia, and it was a really good experience. Working with an organization called New Georgia Project. Really great people.
That's the one she founded, huh, Stacey Abrams?
Yes, Stacey did found it. Don't remember exactly when, but she did found the organization and has moved on to some other things. And like Renee said, unfortunately, she did not get the governorship this go round either. A lot of analysis, a lot of Monday morning quarterbacking, but at the end of the day, she just didn't get it. But I do think Stacey has laid the groundwork for someone to come, whether it be in 4 years, hopefully in just 4 years, to occupy the governor's office in Georgia. And of course, Reverend Warnock is in a extremely close election with a man of questionable mindset. Mind. Indeed. He does seem to lack a few words. But, and then of course, locally, it was wild. So I wasn't here for the local elections, but y'all was throwing out school board members left and right.
Throwing them out left and right, Jesus. Says I'm going by choice. Incumbent school board member Dawn Shanae Collins.
Right, yeah, you decided to keep your hat out of the ring for that one. So, Dawn might have known something we don't. She don't want a headache.
Oh, my.
But, one of my infamous favorite members, she's always looking for clarity. She is no longer on the board, so I'm going to be a little sad.
Why is that?
Because she's quite a hoot.
Well, which one are you talking about?
She asked for clarity. I can't give names.
Listen to this.
But
Where's the clarity in that?
Thank you.
Come on now,
Thank you,
man.
Ronaldo.
We agree with you.
but a lot of post-election analysis, and I think we'll be hosting episodes
Yes.
after this one, of course, further digging down into our communities and figuring out, where do we want to go? Where do we seem like we want to go? And but the big picture was election night here was y'all did something.
Yeah.
Y'all did
Well,
something.
and then look, you mentioned the school board race. I think it's extremely important to note, and we mentioned this in the last podcast. Please remember how much, if you did not know, Now you know. They spent, what, 2.5, almost $3 million on school board races. Mm-hmm. People don't do that because they just love children. They just don't. No. They don't. In a perfect world, yes. But they do it because they seeking a financial return on investment, which is counterintuitive to what's in the best interest of children. So you have to pay attention. If somebody is able to send you a direct mail piece every week, sometimes a couple of times a week, you have to ask who's paying for it and why. Mm-hmm. Now, I'm not going to go far enough to say that that individual is absolutely the scum of the earth, etc. Because in my years of advocacy, I have met people who started, didn't necessarily understand that there were expectations, or they knew that there were expectations, but oops, they didn't have the full picture. And once they got in a seat of elected office, or once they got into a job, and then they realized that oops, they said, or what I understood when I accepted this was one thing, and now I realize it's something else. I have witnessed people, few and far between, but I have witnessed people who, yes, they were on the side of money. They came in on the side of money and realized, my bad, this isn't what I thought it was. Mm-hmm. But I guarantee you, when they spend 2.9 million, they don't spend that much money on Metro Council races. Mm-hmm. They don't spend that kind of money on per candidate. The 2.9 was not per candidate. But when you break down the per candidate, they don't spend that much money per candidate on state rep races. Okay, so please wake up. That much money being spent, especially at an age where people are seeking to privatize public ed, whether it's via unnecessary contracts for friends and or corporations, or chartering out schools and closing your regular public school when you could just better fund and allocate resources to their school instead of making somebody else some money. You just have to keep that in mind. I couldn't pass up that opportunity. You brought up the school board races. Sure. I had to make sure to mention that. And just because their name of the organization that's pumping the money out into your community to influence your vote has a nice little sound to it, like Stand for Children. You're right. Some people say that they're not really Stand for Children. Their real name is Stand On Children. Mm-hmm. I used to try to play nice in the sandbox with them, but then they played dirty with me, and so now I'm gonna tell it like it is.
Oh no!
Thank you.
Well, I think your point though, all the money that got spent alludes to a bigger point. As these races are important, and they recognize the power that these positions hold, and they're hoping that we don't. And the fact that they're spending so much money on these races, if anything, might be from a point of fear. That they also recognize that we know how to organize, we know how to get together. We haven't done it, I think, in the best way possible, but we have the ability to do it and to really push back on some of their, privatization messages. I always said, if Louisiana ever becomes competitive, from local up to the federal, you're going to see a lot more money being spent.
Sure. Yeah.
But I really think we have a chance to look at our communities and see we've got a lot of work to do. We've got a lot of good work to do and good trouble to get into. But we can only go up from here.
Yeah, so we need sufficient numbers of people in order to do it. Whatever good organizing that can be done can only be successful if sufficient numbers of people involve themselves in the political process. Politics is not a bad word. Politics is how we govern ourselves. In a free democratic republic, a representative democratic republic, you can't just send people in and say, I voted for them, they got in, and I've done my job. That's not it. That's not all of it. That's just part of it. That's the easiest part of it. And you should dig down, and you don't have to be as well informed or as knowledgeable on the deep issues of things. You get involved, you get that knowledge. You just get it because you're there. And getting yourself there, you just have to make a plan. It's like making your plan to vote. Don't say I didn't vote because, I couldn't get off or something like that when they have early voting. While they have early voting, you have people who are getting in office right now who want to disenfranchise people, who want to gerrymander the district, who want to shut down polling places, who want to change polling places and not let people know that their polling places have changed, who want to limit hours for voting. That's crazy for you to sit around and pretend like you don't know this is going on and let this happen, because once it happens, it's not going to unhappen without violence, and that's just foolish.
And to be clear, it is hard. We recognize it is hard to keep up with everything that's going on. People have busy lives. People with resources do a very good job of framing the narrative in a way in which it's difficult to be informed. But to her point, one way that you can be informed is you might not have time to go to school board meetings every first and third Thursday of the month. You may not have time to take off from work and go to the legislature or what have you, or the Metro Council meetings. But each of these bodies, especially in today's modern technology, and I know especially here locally, our governmental entities live stream and record their meetings. And so then on your downtime, you may not be able to make time out to even go watch a recording every time. But what you can do is every once in a while, go and watch the recordings to those governmental entities, those meetings, those committee meetings, those full body meetings, etc. And then you might see a few things. And so then when it's campaign season, you might remember, so-and-so was talking about redistricting out in the public, but I didn't see them do anything on redistricting in those meetings, as a small example. So I wanted to mention that too. But what y'all got, what you got for me on that U.S. Senate race?
Well, for me, in my opinion, I wasn't surprised. Of course, in the lead up to it, I got some people saying, "Oh, it's gonna go to a runoff," and I literally just had to kind of laugh. I'm like, guys, the campaign. This is at the end of the campaign, and so if you're throwing everything at the wall now, you've already lost. But,
and for clarity, I said U.S. Senate race, but be clear about which one I'm talking about.
So this past election, we had a Senate race with someone who I like to call Senator Crackhead.
Call the crackhead.
Yes. Senator John.
You knew that dog whistle, didn't you?
He did. Senator John Kennedy ran for a second term against a multitude of candidates, but there were three main Democrats, Gary Chambers, Luke Mixon, and Sarita Steeb, all three of which have never occupied office before.
Okay.
Two of which, this is their first time running for office.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
This is Gary's third time, I believe, running for office.
Okay.
The election turnout wasn't great. It wasn't horrible, but it wasn't great. And Senator Kennedy managed to win 63 out of 64 parishes. He won. He of course did not win Orleans.
63 parishes.
Granted, like for example, EBR, he did not get a majority here. He got 46%. That's still very high. Mm-hmm. But yeah. He what was interesting was he won 51% in my home parish of Cada. And one of the things as a Democrat, if you're looking to win the state of Louisiana, you do not lose Cada.
Correct.
Period.
Because that's how John Bell won Cada.
Part of his victory, part of any Democrat's victory statewide in Louisiana over the past 30 years has been with the help and support of Caddo and more specifically Shreveport, because it's a majority black city. The parish is evenly distributed, and that's just a lot of votes that you get out of there. So that lets me know that, once again, Louisiana isn't as red as people like to make it out to be. It might be conservative unnecessarily on some social issues, but Louisiana is a economically populous state, I believe.
Yes. And
if you can message that in a way that speaks to people, Louisiana, at the very least, is competitive.
May I stir the ants hill just a moment? As far as having 3 Democrats on the ticket running for office, I don't know if there were more or not, but there were 3. I thought it was the point, and I could, please inform me, correct me if I'm wrong, but I had the impression that it was the point of the state party, the state Democratic Party's job was to get a Democrat in the governor's office.
So, to that point, and I've heard
In
this.
the governor's, or in this case, in the Senate office, or you just saying in a statewide office?
Right. Yes.
So
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
One of the big things is I've heard people say, don't split the vote, or so and so should have dropped out. And one of the blessings about Louisiana is we have a 2-round system. So affectionately say, vote with your heart in the first round, vote with your mind in the second. There's no such thing as splitting the vote here. You can vote for who you'd like to, and if someone ends up below 50%, there will be a second round, a runoff with the top 2 vote getters. So it kind of shows you people's first preference.
Okay.
Right.
Now, I will, if you don't mind, I'll interject this. I think, and everybody has a right to run, and I'm not saying who I feel like should have been the choice. Because some people started out early, like John Bell did, which is what you have to do in a statewide race as a Democrat. And others had some momentum and got in later, and that's fine. Like, again, what I'm about to say is not in preference for any particular Democrat. But you mentioned we have the primary and then we have the runoff, where in primary, for those who are a little politically young, your first race, that's each party. Well, actually, we have open primaries.
So that's why I say the 2-round system. Here, in the first round, everybody and their mama can run.
Yeah, well, but then I'm going to push back a little bit more as I'm thinking it through. Excuse me. Even more so, the point I was about to make is this. It is more because Republicans was behind. I learned in years past that Republicans were behind the push for us to have the jungle primaries we have. Because I won't pretend to be able to elaborate on the details, but I did learn that was a Republican initiative.
So interestingly, like you said earlier, that was the reason for Georgia. It used to be the fear was in Georgia, a lot of conservative Dixie racist white folks.
Okay.
They, were smart enough to realize if there's one black candidate, then Georgia has a very large black population, that they would all rally around that one candidate, and they could get 40% of the vote with the rest of the white vote split between them amongst other people. And that is why Georgia has a runoff process. For Louisiana, and a lot of the South, since they have these runoff processes for different reasons, and ours is because Edwin Edwards got tired of running in runoffs. He ran for governor, he needed a runoff in the Democratic primary, because back then, the Democratic Party was everybody and their mama, from black folks to the racist white Dixiecrats that were still hanging on. We all voted in the Democratic primary. The Republican Party virtually didn't exist. And he ran in a runoff for that. And then he did a runoff in a regular election. And he was like, we're not going to do all this. We just going to compress it, break it down. We're just going to have 2. But you are right. It does have some racist connotations in certain states. One of the things, unfortunately, I sometimes push back on is it does give a chance to show people's preferences in an election. Like, for example, John Bell, when he first ran, got 40% of the vote. And then I believe David Vitter was at 23, Scott Angel was at 12 or something, and Jay Darden was like at 11. And Jay Darden ended up endorsing John Bell. And if you kind of track those votes, you add Jay Darden's totals to John Bell's totals, you get 54, and John Bell eventually landed on 56. So,
but in an instance like this one with the U.S. Senate,
it does confuse the message. I do think, with 3 Democrats running.
Not so much about, well, I guess messaging is included, and then we're going to move on to next segment.
Okay.
But the thing about, and again, everybody have a right to run. I'm not saying nobody else should have run, and I'm not saying who I feel like should have been. My point is simply this: when you are already at a disadvantage statewide as a Democratic candidate, or let's say in this more fully as the Democratic Party, you need to be able to build momentum. And so when there are 2 or 3 strong candidates, then it makes it difficult for a momentum amongst the electorate to really push and go out and maybe bump Kennedy at least into a runoff. And so especially when you're dealing with open primaries, because at the very least, the top Democrat in a closed primary could have gone to a runoff and maybe at that point pushed and got enough momentum for the runoff. But so moving on,
Yes, look, we're gonna have a lot more episodes on.
Yes, on voter education, etc.
Yes.
Now look, we for the holiday edition and post-election, and we still have some other election, school board runoffs, etc. But election season, we decided to go ahead and let our What's Good in the Hood deal with the past election cycle in October. But we usually spotlight a community group or an individual or what have you doing some amazing stuff. If that's you, email us at whatsgood@phoenixrisingwithdawn.com. Put in the subject line, What's Good in the Hood, and we'll see about whether or not we can have you on the show and spotlight the good work that you're doing out in the community. All right, so now look, Chauncey, what's up with the viral news?
All right. I know y'all been waiting for me to talk because look, I just been in my own
You've been chill.
my own little head today. Woo. First one I want to talk about is Kim Jong-un and his daughter. You know what I'm saying? He randomly,
His secret daughter.
his secret daughter. He randomly pops out. Like, yeah, well, the way he showed her first and foremost was at a ballistics missile launch.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Some people said that was kind of like a message to like, okay, I'm Kim Jong, but I'm passing the throne because, look at this power, look at this, but I still got my family. Don't forget I'm raising a family here or whatnot. I just thought it was surprising. It would be like, what reason do you have to hide your baby? It just don't make sense to me. You're not Drake. You're not somebody that's out here. You know what I'm saying? You have no reason to hide your child, but hey, who knows?
But isn't everything about him kind of secretive, like his sister?
Yeah, everything. They say he has 3 kids. They say he has a daughter, 2 daughters and a son. We have yet to see the son. The youngest daughter he just shown, and then the oldest daughter is the richest female alive right now. She's 13. She's a billionaire.
And you seldom see the wife.
Yeah, you seldom see her.
Oh, yeah.
They say it's a trust
right,
thing with him. He doesn't trust anything apparently, and he's like, okay, if you get to see my daughter, I'm extending a little comfort, but I'm showing her while I'm launching missiles. So
let's talk about the secret family instead of talking about the missile launch.
The missile launch.
Okay, all right.
I'm testing ballistics over here, but
yes, they have the capacity to reach the United States of America.
They
have that range.
I'm knowing. I mean, yeah, most missiles do. Because look, I don't trust any non-ally to be launching missiles in the sky. Never did, never will. I don't even care if there's a meteor shot.
As much as I, offer restraint for the U.S. military, I will say this. If there's any country I want to feel safe in, it's this one.
Well, yeah.
They can launch all they want. We got that.
Let's hope, but by the time you start launching missiles like that, the only response is another missile launch. I mean, what do you answer that with?
They keep hitting the ocean, Miss Renee.
Well,
they can't aim.
I don't know that they're aiming at us at the moment.
They can try.
International politics is not, I don't know. So I'm listening.
I barely keep
I'm
up with
saying my
politics as
lane.
it is. I'm so young.
Well,
Look,
I think you do a pretty good job. Don't cut yourself short.
it's thanks to my mom that I keep up with any form of politics.
Yay, mom.
You know,
It's here for the mamas.
I got the next one. I got is Big Sean and Janae Aiko. Welcome the sun into the world, Mr. Noah. Oh, and now it's been very popular. It's been very popular because they are the new like.
I have never heard of these.
No, they're the new like black relationship, black love image. You know what I'm saying?
Black relationship goals.
Yeah.
I guess it's not Ruby D and O.C. Davis anymore.
Ooh.
Oh, well, there you go, Renee. Piece of cheese.
Who is that?
Used to be Will and Jada. You know, it's sad one. You know what I'm saying? I hope you know they live up to expectations. I guess. I mean, I don't care. You know what I'm saying? But hey, it's a good black family, so I feel like you should know about it. News. The next one I got for you though. Let me go pull up my handy dandy phone. Oh, here we go. Everyone on Trump's Secretary of State candidates lost. He endorsed. Yeah, round
He
of
did a
applause for
good
that.
job.
Right.
He did a great job.
He endorsed. I think it was 3 people. No, 4. He endorsed 4 people, and all of them lost. Every single last one of them. So that's beautiful. There was something I saw on MSBNC that I just want to say. It says, in practical terms, we're talking about officials who could take radical and undemocratic steps before Election Day and then make matters worse after Election Day by refusing to certify election results they don't like, including vote tallies in 2024 presidential election. I saw that as a joke. It was a big paragraph, but I saw that as a joke. I laughed at that. That was pretty funny for me. And then I got Alex Jones. Sandy Hook defamation payout just soared to new heights. Apparently, this guy is one who's been using the right-winged platform to make false accusations and false statements about the massacre at Sandy Hooks or whatnot. Apparently, he has to pay $473 million in punitive damages, and then another $45 million to the parents of Sandy Hooks for reparations.
I'm so happy for him.
The truth matters.
That's his Christmas.
It
I'm
matters.
telling you.
Truth matters. That's all I got. Oh, and besides, other stuff like the Republicans winning the House of Senate. I mean, the control of the House.
Yes.
But other than that,
To offer some more viral news, Elon Musk is having a wonderful time
Oh,
failing running Twitter.
Yeah.
All I will say is, as long as Twitter survives, I love my Twitter app. I love Twitter, but can we get rid of Musk? Please get rid of him.
Black Twitter posted that Twitter died or whatnot. They got memes saying Twitter is now dead.
I've been loving the memes.
Yeah, it's funny. Yeah.
All right. So now, roundtable discussion about black economic development in the black community. And so, Brother Rinaldi, first and foremost, we want to offer our heartfelt condolences on the passing of your father. He was a true champion on this subject matter and just a good guy all around. And so I really appreciate you making time to come join us on today's show.
Thank you for having me. More importantly, I just appreciate the opportunity to be here and talk about a lot of different things. So it's going to be fun.
All right, thanks. So look, for those the term economic development gets tossed around often. For those that are not particularly familiar with what economic development is in general, explain that so we can be grounded in the conversation.
Yeah. So I just want to give a little bit about myself as
All
well.
right.
My name is Rinaldi Jacobs Jr. I've been a realtor since 2007. So whenever someone asks me, what is it that you do? I just say I'm a realtor. It makes it easy for me. They generally don't start asking a whole lot of questions after that. Everybody knows what a realtor is.
Yeah.
But one of the things that we definitely want to cover is the basis of what economic development is. So to make it really easy for people is essentially taking someone's situation or community situation and improving their means of life, making things better, whether that's from school systems, financially, job opportunities, even the buildings and structures and things that are around. So in a nutshell, make it really simple. It's just making your life better. That's what economic development is.
All right, thank you. So now, what does that mean? What's unique about economic development in the Black community?
I want to give a perspective that
Okay.
is probably a little different than what most people expected. I think it's a great opportunity in Black communities. And the reason why I say that is because there are so many incentives and things that are targeting Black communities right now. I actually had a meeting about 3 weeks ago down in New Orleans at a credit union, which is called a CDFI, a Community Development Financial Institution. And so one of the cool things that a lot of people don't know about economics and finance is that right now, people that look like us are in. You know, there are a lot of incentives, a lot of opportunities, a lot of things that are going on. So when I say that, in our area, there are a lot of programs that are going on right now to make our situation, our community, our economic development system better. And that comes from the top down, from the administration on down. So giving some examples, right? When you start seeing things going on in the banking and financial system that impact us, that you generally don't see all at the same time, there's something going on, right?
For example.
So I'll give you a couple examples. Chase Bank making a $30 billion with a B, $30 billion commitment, racial equity commitment. Then you have PNC Bank making a $98 billion racial equity commitment. Hope Federal Credit Union making a $1 billion racial equity commitment. So these people don't start doing these things just because they like us.
Right.
You know, there's some kind of incentive and reason for that to happen. So when you come from a perspective of working in this kind of world, you start to learn stuff, you know? So one of those things is that banks operate and they're insured by the FDIC, right? You see that on commercials, you see that on advertisements, things like that. Well, that's basically their insurance policy, you know? That's who bails them out when they make bad decisions. Or when somebody comes to stick up the place and your account is insured, it's insured by the FDIC, right? So the FDIC insures banks based on what's called a CAMELS score, like a humpback camel score. And that stands for capital, assets, management, equity, liquidity, and sustainability.
I saw this on Adam's ruin everything. Okay, keep going.
Yeah. So we can go a little deep. We're gonna dive a little deep in the deep end today. So if they have their insurance affected by camel scores and those things, then they say, hey, listen, you guys better start making investment in these people. They don't say Black people's community. They have to politically correct that thing a little bit. So they say disinvested communities. And they say, hey, if you make these investments, you better start doing something in disinvested communities or we're going to impact your camel score, which impacts your insurance, which makes things more expensive for you. And they have their ways of regulatory making things more difficult for banks. So those are some examples of things that are happening that a lot of people don't know about, aren't aware about, that will impact you. And that's from the making business commitments of providing funds to Black businesses, which is really difficult and a real sticking point for a lot of small businesses who are trying to start up and get things going. There are housing commitments. That's why you see them saying, hey, we'll help you. You'll see signs in front of houses saying Hancock Whitney or Chase will give you X amount of dollars towards your down payment and closing costs. They are including that in those racial equity commitments. And you guys can look it up. Just do a little Google search and you'll start seeing where money's starting to go.
That's pretty neat.
We'll see. Jamie Dimon ain't hurting yet.
All right, cool. So then tell us, are there any particular barriers to economic development? I mean, you told us some great opportunities. Are there any barriers to economic development in Black communities?
A ton. I mean, there are a lot of things. I tell people this all the time. You don't fix a 300-400 year problem in 30 days or 3 years or 4 years in an election term, as an example. There are a lot of things, one of them being the current condition. We've been so disinvested for so long that we have a long way to go up. I mean, it's like one thing if you're building from the ground up. Some of us are under the ground. Our communities and areas are way below. So you have to fill that hole and then get us on a level playing field to even build us up to get to somewhere to be able to do some things. So that's one of the huge challenges that we have. The other is a financial commitment. You know, a lot of people aren't going to invest in our areas unless there's an incentive or a reason to. A lot of these bigger companies, you have Amazon coming here locally. They don't do that just because they like Baton Rouge. There's some incentives that are going. So from an economic standpoint, there are a lot of things that hurt us. Number one, we're starting below the means of others, and we have to get investment in our areas. Usually people like to invest in their own areas, their own neighborhoods. So for us, it's hard for us to be able to make that investment because we don't have the same resources that other places and other areas have. So in that situation, there tends to be incentives and things that are done to help us in those situations. As an example, there's something called new market tax credits. Okay. And essentially what a new market tax credit is if I give you 5, these go to banks and financial institutions. And what happens is they get these from the federal government. They're given to them. And they say, hey, I'll give you, $50 million in new market tax credits, right? They then take that $50 million and they go to an IBM, a Microsoft, an Amazon, and some of these bigger companies and say, hey, I'll give you $50 million in tax credits from the federal government if you give me $40 million cash. And then they're able to take that cash and invest it in areas that generally wouldn't have those incentives and things going on, where people would just automatically come there and invest without some sort of incentive. So there are a lot of opportunities, but there are also a lot of things we got to overcome and a lot of long-term issues and neglect that we have to ultimately overcome to get there.
What about, I know I was working on, a couple of years back, I had a project to do some research with with small businesses, diverse, Black, white, etc. And one thing that was mentioned consistently to me was things like, and this contract was in particular for, bless you, was in particular for business opportunities with government entities, RFPs, etc. So in those instances, what was prevalent was a prevalent concern around small businesses and especially minority businesses was some of the RFP or requests for proposal, bid, etc., whichever term you'd like to use, the bond rates, and things of that nature. Could you speak a little bit to that?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the bigger challenges that we have is sometimes they structure things so that it's difficult for us. So what I mean by that is you can get this contract, you have to have a certain level of experience, you have to have a certain level of bonding, a certain level of insurance, which is a very difficult thing for a lot of minorities. And a lot of insurance companies in this area are bailing out left and right.
They certainly are.
Yeah, for a number of different reasons. So those are some of the other obstacles that we have to overcome. My biggest thing and my biggest challenge to our own people as a whole is education. Okay. That, like, for me, the biggest obstacle is education, because you're not going to learn a lot of these things in our school system. We have to have people that take on and learn from others who have been in this situation, that have these opportunities, bring it back home and teach one another, because that's the only way that a lot of us are going to be aware of the opportunities that are available. So there are great opportunities, but if you're never aware of them, you can never get into the situation to be able to use them and apply them. So there are times and things that are set up to, sometimes that have been set up previously and sometimes still are, to be a roadblock for us, such as getting insurance and licensing. So you have to then
the amounts.
Yeah, or the amounts. And then you have to go and partner with someone who's already there and bring them in and help, kind of split the pie with you in order to get a job or a contract.
And hopefully they give you more than a few crumbs. Hopefully,
or even let you leave. Sometimes they'll end up taking over the project and putting you as a sub, more so than you controlling it. So one of the things that I do see a lot over the last 3 or 4 years is that there has been a lot of government incentives to help us holistically from an economic development standpoint. Let me give you some examples on that. USDA is giving away a ton of money, like a lot. Department of Agriculture, ton of money. Ton of money.
And agribusiness is a big deal anyway, huh?
Huge. There's a few things that if you want to be able to be in business, there's a few areas that you're pretty much going to be pretty stable in. Housing, people have to have a place to live. Food and agriculture, people have to eat, you know. And then usually people have to get around and have some sort of means of travel, you know. So those are generally some areas outside of COVID that you'll usually be successful, right? You'll have some consistency in. So speaking of a point of view from actually handling and having those sort of situations, I think the biggest thing again is knowledge and having the opportunity to just learn on things that we generally won't see in our own school system. And having those discussions, we go to a barbershop and talk about sports, we talk about, you know, hip hop, we talk about culture, we talk about, you know, shoes and all kinds of things. Like, we have to start learning things that are going to continuously build ourselves up to be able to be successful long term. So, in speaking on agriculture as an example, with the current administration and the cabinet that he has, there are a lot of grants. There's a grant program right now that's designated for HBCUs and tribal institutions. They're called the 1890 schools, right?
Oh, yeah, okay.
So the grant has a base, a floor of $500,000. It has a ceiling of $20 million.
Okay.
And there's a pool allotment available of up to $250 million for this particular grant. And it's to help disinvested farmers become level on a playing field. So you can't tell me that we can't partner up with the Southern University as an example and come up with a way to spend $20 million to help farmers, whether it's from tech and having equipment that's technologically sound that helps them and they're not struggling because they have the advantage of technology and getting servers and sensors in the ground. It comes from logistics and trucking and moving your food and agriculture from place to place. Our people are really big in trucking. We can have and get some funding for that. It can come from fertilizers or helping our grocery store. So there's a ton of different ways. Agriculture is in everything. They use corn and rice and from clothes to cotton, like everything that you have, agriculture is really huge. And that's one example. So the current administration is structuring programs and opportunities for us specifically to take advantage of. And part of the issue and challenge is us being able to take advantage of those kind of programs. And I'll give you one more. There was a $256 million pilot program. This is just a pilot program to test out how they would possibly implement a later program. That program was set to help communities around HBCUs and tribal institutions to become more technologically advanced. And so you can use that money to help with training programs, business opportunities, getting technologically advanced and more modern, because a lot of the areas around HBCUs are generally people that would go to the HBCU, right? So whether that was giving them equipment to be able to connect to the internet, you know, things like that. Of that program, it was a pilot program. They had a pool of $256 million available. There was an allocation. I went and looked at the allocation. They totaled about $10.5 million out of the 256 that they actually gave away, right? And of the schools that got that money, you have a Blinn College in Oklahoma, you know, such and such. There wasn't a Southern University, a Jackson State, a Grambling, we weren't involved in those programs. So there are opportunities and money that we need to go after. And some of the things that I've been working on and pushing is getting our people in a position to understand, hey, these opportunities are available. We need to go for them because it's set there for us. If we don't go after the opportunities that are available, that's on us.
Perhaps that does go back to what you were saying about making sure that folks are talking with each other, networking with each other, and spreading knowledge amongst each other. I can't imagine, for example, that a SU wouldn't know about that kind of opportunity, but you just don't know who got the memo, perhaps.
Right, exactly.
Part of it is that a lot of them get these emails in a ton, so they also are limited on their resources. So I'm having to write a grant, plus go teach a class, plus go handle this and that.
Yes.
So they don't have the resources of LSU, as an example, to just have people dedicated to one particular cause because they're limited on resources. That could be one, I don't want to say reason or excuse, but that's part of it, is that they're stretched to their resources, so it's hard for them to really have something.
Well, and then back to the micro level, in terms of individual small business owners, same thing.
Yeah.
Like you might be you might actually know about different listservs that announce contracts with governmental entities, but you are a 5-person or less shop, and you already stretched thin to get the regular business done. and you might need that next contract, but when do you have time to go through the emails about the various projects, and then the time to figure out who's going to be a good partner, whether it's somebody that come in with you as a sub or a prime. When do you have time to have that conversation? When do you have time to figure out how you're going to write your proposal up for the bid, etc.? So I think your point is very valid.
Yeah, and also not on top of that, a lot of us may have great skill sets. Like we have some of the best skill sets.
Yes.
But it's the backside of learning about business and the things that we need to know and implement that really hurt us. So having the correct and proper certifications to go after a governmental contract, MBE certification as a minority business, woman-owned businesses, veteran-owned businesses. So having the right documents and certification, having your taxes paid, having, a profit and loss statement, the things that financial institutions and people look for when they're taking in these contracts, these bids, these opportunities, we oftentimes don't have a commitment or the knowledge to have the things in place that are needed to make us successful in order to obtain those opportunities.
Very true. So, now I'm one of those gals that I'm always looking for low-hanging fruit and whatever it is I'm dealing with. And so then this question is a little bit, or I have this observation rather, and you give me your feedback.
Okay.
I have concern around some black business owners. No, that's not how I want to say it. I see areas of town that are predominantly people of color, but they're not necessarily poverty stricken.
Yeah.
But then there's not investment by, there's not much. There is investment, but not much investment, or I don't see it. I'm gonna say it like that. I see everybody else making money in communities of color.
Yeah.
But I don't see a lot of black business owners making money in our community. And some of them will venture on the other side of town. I'm not hating on that, but what I am saying, or what I'm concerned about is, or wondering about, let me say it like that, is, are we missing out on opportunities, or are there dynamics that I don't understand in my observation?
That's a good question. I think we are missing out on a lot of opportunities because sometimes there are places that there are investments that are made by other groups in our areas and they become successful and we endorse them and we franchise them and we go and spend our money there. And oftentimes we don't have the same vision or projections that they have for that same area. I also think that a lot of times we're fighting amongst ourselves on different things where I wanted to have this here and you wanted to have this there. And instead of us coming together and supporting each other, we're going and neither one of us ends
that
up with
scarcity mentality.
Yes, yeah. It's a crabs in a bucket sort of mentality where if I can't have it all, then nobody can have it, sort of thing. So also a lot of times what happens is that one of us may do very, very well and we don't come back and help out anybody else to come and bring along and help and project others. So a lot of the other minority groups that come in and buy shops and start gas stations and grocery stores and different little things in I don't want to say the other stores in our communities, they are thriving, but they come together as a whole and push in the same direction. Oftentimes, unfortunately, we don't have that same commitment to all be on the same page. And when we do, it's sometimes a little bit too late, or sometimes we miss opportunities that we could have taken advantage of. So I do think that's part of it too.
And I think, sometimes, those other communities, because they have more recent migratory backgrounds, period. Most of us weren't migrants. They are blessed to have that mindset because they had to. And at one point, you could argue that we had to have that kind of mindset too. But somewhere along the way, the communication got lost, the strategic thinking, in terms of, okay, build wealth, but then be mindful of communities that look like myself. And so, I wanted to make sure, I wanted to throw that out there, because I think, especially, this is what caused me to really reflect on that. Today's political climate, we're gonna have to, because of the very nature of the fascism, the heightened sense of tribalism, and the higher levels of racism involved in today's political climate, which is not just a national situation, but it affects our local politics. It affects the way government chooses to invest and divest in our respective pockets of community. Then I truly believe that it is incumbent upon us as people of color, and in particular as African Americans, to make an exerted effort to invest in Black community. And we cannot buy into the okie doke, the charade, what have you, that, well, we don't invest in Black communities because there's no money there. Black people don't take care of their communities. Like, we can't internalize racist stereotypes against our own people, especially when there's evidence of other people making money in our own community. And so, especially now, at a time where we need each other, whether we like it or not, whether it's right or wrong, we need each other now more than we ever had, because it's going to take a long time to get back to or try to get to a place in which racism and people being emboldened to take racist action is put back in check. And so I just wanted to lift that up, and I appreciate your thoughts. And anybody had any other thoughts before we let Ronaldo go and go to his niece's birthday party?
No, I appreciate you coming, and I appreciate your comments and your insight on this. But I am interested to know if there is somebody or some entity that is lifting up these grants to the Black community, to the potential the people who would potentially be able to benefit from them, the businesses. Is there somebody going in there to, you know what I mean? Is somebody working that?
Yeah, well, part of the challenge that I've had was because these grants are specifically designated for HBCUs, and there's a push by the administration for us to be included. There's a reason why LSU went and became an agriculture college 3 years ago.
Oh,
You see, a lot of people,
they always were agricultural.
I know it. Look.
There's a reason. There's money there. And going on your point.
Oh, I'm wore out.
We dropping a little knowledge today. Look, Jim, we dropping some knowledge today.
Yeah.
We dropping some knowledge. So, as you said, there's gold in the hood. A famous phrase my dad would say, there's gold in the hood. So there are those opportunities, but those are conversations that I had with the President Chancellor's office at the university, some senators here that are local, and other individuals to actually present those opportunities to make sure we're taking advantage of those things. But one of the points that I did want to give before I get out of here, speaking of other people and other communities, I was speaking to a former IBM executive who was a individual, went to Southern University. At the time they had IBM there, and they would basically shoo you into the IBM program. So she became an exec. Long story short, she was saying one of the huge things that they used to do is outsource to India for tech jobs, right? But see, at the beginning, India was giving us their best and brightest individuals. Now they're pulling anybody off the street to fulfill the world's need. But ultimately what would happen is they would send their best and brightest over initially, get them in the door, get them up the corporate ladder. And now if you look at the Googles and some of these other companies, Those are the people that are now running those organizations. So then what do?
They send the jobs.
They start sending the jobs back to their country, to their people, and helping and build in. And that money's not coming back to us, you know. So, as an example, there's an initiative for cybersecurity, and those jobs start at 75 grand a year. You know, you have people, and you can get high schoolers and people that are in situations that are economically challenged, and get them a job like that, and put them in a way better position, so they're not having to worry about their family and knock somebody over the head trying to make ends meet. So those are some of the opportunities and the things that we just need to talk more about and bring those opportunities to our community so we can better ourselves. Because instead of shipping those jobs overseas, we can have those jobs right here supporting people in our community.
Sure.
I want to say thank you, of course. I think this conversation is really good. And I think when we have these conversations, we have to look at, you know, I like to call it the part of the book that never gets the pages flipped, and that is working class Black people. Because at the end of the day, I think when we talk about wealth and Black Wall Street, I get so icky feeling, because I'm like, well, you know, most of them didn't do it. It was actually the people toiling away on the floor, on the factories, in the shops, and to bring it to modern age. It is the people cleaning our hotels and our homes. It's the people taking out the trash. It's the people cooking our food in restaurants. It's the people performing services at the stores that we shop at. It's those people who oftentimes are the creators of wealth and have no say-so over their labor and their wealth and where it's spent and where it's valued. And I think that
they're living out of their cars, and they have to have 2 other jobs too.
And I do think that's one of the...
Well, they're close to that.
You know, I hate to be like Debbie Dowell. One of the criticisms that I've often offered or like to have Black communities talk about is the underside of all of this, which is, you know, I am a firm believer that, you know, like, Black capitalism won't save us. But if we're going to even entertain that direction, if we're gonna do this, we have to look at everyone involved in the picture, and the vast majority of those people are people who look like us, who toil away and don't even have a say in saying, you know, we just made this company $50 billion in profit, and we're still making the same wages adjusted for inflation as 50 years ago.
Right. While they took the big amount of the profit to make some more money.
Well, you see, to your point, and then we'll let Brother Ronaldo
Of
go.
course. But I think we're going to have to have many more
Yes,
conversations.
absolutely, because this was good.
I can invite back.
Yeah, absolutely. It was good.
Yes,
In a choice, I think I shared with you a post on Instagram. The dude that did the movie Sorry to Bother You.
Yeah.
And so he was sharing how excited he was, and he listed, and I don't recall, but the point was unionization. I don't know, Renaldo, I ain't gonna try to put you in a box. How you feel about labor unions, etc.
Yes.
I'm a child of the labor movement.
Yes.
I love it.
Labor built the country.
Because people have to organize, because the people with the money already have the power, and then you just, you know, it has to be a balance, okay? I'm not saying be Jimmy Hoffa, but you have to have power. And so he was sharing how he was excited to see people organizing from 40-something thousand workers from not UCLA, one of these universities.
Berkeley just had, I believe it was Berkeley that had a huge...
All of their campuses. And several other businesses and then you saw a couple of earlier this year, or maybe late last year, 2 brothers started the first union at Amazon. And so union and labor activity has increased because a lot of people are experiencing some of the hardships that you just mentioned. So
And when I say the Black working class, I'm not talking about I am talking about
nurses, aides.
I'm talking about the people who do own some of these small scale grocery stores. You know, one of the things I think one of the biggest misconceptions in the labor left movement is a hatred of small business. No, they're still working. Their labor is still providing their wealth or whatever they're getting from. I'm talking about, you know, the people that sit at the top who literally do nothing all day and tell other people what to do, and then somehow get a check, and it's like, well, you didn't do nothing.
Who want us to believe that their 24 hours of the day is worth a whole lot more, you know, is worth several fortunes worth.
Yeah.
But your 24 hours a day is
nothing.
is of no value or very, very little.
Exactly.
Look, there's a difference between capitalism and commerce. We need commerce. Human beings need commerce. And so it's a good thing to have healthy commerce and commerce all throughout. But this capitalism stuff is off the chain. And it's untrammeled, it's unrestrained.
And for the record, I've already said on previous shows, because it seems like we always go back to this capitalism. And we're going to do a show just about that.
We need to.
Capitalism, socialism.
I just want us to dip our toes, and we're not going to get into it.
I'm
today.
agnostic, okay? You know, because at the end of the day, as I've said on other shows, if people heart ain't right, they're going to pimp whatever economic system is out there.
Sure they will.
In our situation, our capitalist economy was established on exploiting free labor,
Exactly.
starting out with
from black
slavery.
folks.
Okay, yeah, and so
So I'm gonna have
we
to hold a grudge. I'm sorry.
look. I mean, I'm gonna recognize the ills that exist. I'm just saying, you know, so it won't be no memes out there. Don Sinead Collins is a communist. I'm agnostic because human
Don't listen to
beings are
those people. They
trash.
can't meme properly anyway.
But thank you again.
Thank you, Ronald.
Thank
Yeah, thank you for having me. I appreciate
And
all
you
of
tell
you.
your
Yeah.
niece happy birthday.
I will.
Yeah, please.
Thank you very much.
All right.
You guys have a great day.
All
Thank
right.
you for having me.
Okay.
Step out.
All right.
Do you have a business card?
I don't. I'll bring some. I'll bring
Please.
some back and make sure we get some business
Okay,
cards.
Dawn knows
All
how to
right.
find you.
Yes.
Yes, and you can go on my website, 225avenues.com.
Oh wait. Stick your head in
Oh, I'm
the
sorry.
frame.
225avenues with an S.com. You can check me out there on the website. Thank you much.
Okay.
We'll put it in
All
the
right.
description.
Thank you much. Y'all have a great day.
You
Oh,
too. What?
I'm gonna look tacky. He said, put it in the description. I can't do that right now. I'm gonna look tacky.
Oh, no,
Come
not
up to
right
the front.
now.
Okay,
Oh,
later
we
on.
uploaded. Yeah.
Oh, all right. So moving forward, look, I'm excited to discuss the books for this holiday season.
Yes.
Yes. All right. So look, I have All About Love with Bell Hooks. Bell Hooks, for those who don't know, was a powerful, God rest her soul. She passed on and went to the other side of heaven in December of last year. But she was a beautiful, powerful black feminist author, and she spoke on many issues. Now this book, why I'm lifting up this book, because the spirit of love, holiday season. Okay, well I want to lift it up because people often hear, and look, I pass out notes, or used to pass out notes to my colleagues on the board about love. If you have not love, what is there? You can gain the whole world, you know, all this other stuff. Okay, and I think people think I'm just being mushy and too nice and too kind and yada yada yada, and they think I'm talking about a mushy emotional feeling. But when I say love, and love is so powerful, because love is not just about a feeling. It is about being accountable to one another. And it's not just about intimate relationships. It's not just about familial relationships. It's about community. And in particular, Bell Hooks was talking about here in this. She dealt with the familial. She dealt with community, but it also has policy implications. You cannot, if you are operating in love, and those who profess to be children of God, by whichever name you choose to call God, or whichever religion you adopt to, they all have the golden rule in common. They all look at love and God as love. In fact, the Bible says God is love. You cannot profess to be a child of God as an elected official or a policymaker of any kind, or a leader in community, and then poo-poo, okay, on your fellow man. You cannot go to church on Sunday, or Bible study, or pray and meditate, or whatever it is that you do, and look in the mirror and say, I am a child of God, and then you taking money under the table while you pretending to be Black Power, or whatever it is that you out here in community saying you're doing. And that's what I loved about this book with Bell Hooks, because she was very extensive about explaining that love is more than a feeling. And I found it to be very powerful. I found it to be heartwarming and affirmative, because again, I preach about operating in love. I don't always get it right, but that's my goal. And I try to encourage others to do so. And I try not to operate in a mindset of vengeance or malice, etc. And I think it's very important that we start to center ourselves around that, because that's all we have. In a world full of animosity, just think about our current climate and current condition in the political arena, in local community. People are so hostile towards one another right now. People are so hurt on the inside right now. We can't keep going in that direction. I'm gonna close on this book with this thought, with this quote. And she first centers the conversation around, well, what is love? And she says, imagine how much easier it would be for us to learn how to love if we began with a shared definition. The word love is most often defined as a noun, yet all the more astute theorists of love acknowledge that we would all be better off if we use it as a verb. Okay, and so then she goes on and she says, I found a definition in psychiatrist M. Scott Peck's classic self-help book, The Road Less Traveled, first published in 1978. He defines love as the will to extend one's self for the purpose of nurturing one's own, self-love, or another's spiritual growth. And yes, that applies to politicians. Yes, that applies to how you treat your neighbor. Yes, that applies to how you treat your children or your parent or your co-hosts. Okay, so all about love, bell hooks. All right, I'm doing books for Christmas, and so some of my family members are gonna see some of these books. All
And
right.
the stockings.
Yes. All right. So, and remember, I'm not just being mushy when I say we need to love one another, cause I'll knock you out.
We know.
Y'all know. All for the sake of love, cause you're gonna love thy neighbor. Okay, let me stop clowning. All right, so the next book, Jennifer Lewis, the mother of Black Hollywood.
Oh my.
This is her autobiography. I love this one because she's unashamed about sharing her bipolar diagnosis. It is very powerful. Now, I skimmed through it. I haven't read it like I've read Bell Hooks, but it's powerful. I love, it was a part in it, and Sister Kenyatta Nelson helped me to this book, and I'm so glad she had read it. And one thing that we discussed that was very powerful about this book was that she's long had a bipolar diagnosis. And one thing she discusses in this book is how she was doing well for herself, etc., but she was holding herself back because she was not embracing her diagnosis and getting treated and getting the help and support that she needed accordingly. And so she was causing a lot of havoc, not just in her professional work, but also in her personal life. And so she shares how once she embraced her diagnosis, got the support that she needed to deal with her diagnosis, that it really changed her life. So mental health, all right? And then Give and Take by Adam Grant. All right, so a revolutionary approach to success. This also goes and falls in line a little bit with love being more than an intimate goo goo gaga feeling. In this case, he deals more with kindness. Okay, and so Give and Take just might be the most important book of this young century, and insightful and entertaining as Malcolm Gladwell at his best. This book has profound implications for how we manage our careers, deal with our friends and relatives, raise our children, and design our institutions. For generations, we have focused on the individual drivers of success: passion, hard work, talent, and luck. But in today's dramatically reconfigured world, success is increasingly dependent on how we interact with others. Give and Take illuminates what effective networking, collaboration, influence, negotiation, and leadership skills have in common. And so in professional interactions, it turns out that most people operate as either takers, matchers, or givers. Whereas takers strive to get as much as possible from others and matchers aim to trade evenly, givers are the rare breed of people who contribute to others without expecting anything in return. Using his own groundbreaking studies, Grant reveals that these styles have a dramatic impact on success. Although some givers get exploited and burnt out, amen,
It can happen.
the rest achieve extraordinary results across a wide range of industries. You ain't expect a man of success to talk about, oh, be a giver, did you? It all goes back to what I was talking about, operating in love. Okay? Combining cutting-edge evidence with captivating stories, this landmark book shows how one of America's best networkers developed his connections, while the creative genius behind one of those most popular shows in television history toiled for years in anonymity, how a basketball executive responsible for multiple draft busts transformed his franchise into a winner, and how we could have impacted Enron's demise for years. And you know, when you talking about love and giving and you throw Enron in there, it's nothing but goodness all up in there. So that's our book. Any thoughts before I go into I said it?
I want to read Auntie Jennifer Lewis.
Auntie Jennifer Lewis. It's a good one. All right. Okay, so look. I said it. Now usually in I said it, it's just me talking. But it's such a hot topic. If my co-hosts want to do an amen or hold up, can I interject? Then we just gonna roll with it and let it happen. Okay. So in today's I said it. We are dealing with the anti-slavery bill that never was.
Yeah.
Look, and when I share my thoughts, I'm not pointing my finger at one particular person. In particular, I'm not pointing any finger at the author of the bill. I am not pointing my finger at the author of the bill. My point, so for those who may not be aware of what happened, there was a lot of confusion around Amendment 7. In various states, there was an effort, and in those other states, they were successful, but we had a bit of a flop here in Louisiana.
A bit.
Okay, if you've seen the documentary The 13th Amendment on Netflix, or if you haven't, I recommend you go see it. The 13th Amendment is what we are used to citing when we refer to the Emancipation Proclamation and Lincoln freed the slaves, etc. But there is an often overlooked exception, which is all people shall be free except involuntary servitude for hard labor for crimes, etc. And that's a paraphrase, not an exact quote.
Right.
There is a similar provision in the state's constitution. Okay, and so what Amendment 7 on the October ballot was about was, on the November ballot, was getting rid of that provision, that exception to involuntary servitude in the state constitution. Okay, in some other states, they were successful.
That's right.
In their state constitution with removing the exception. And so then their state constitution now says there's no slavery, period. Whether it's you're locked up in jail or what have you, no slavery. In Louisiana, what happened was a whole lot of confusion. And for me, I feel like it was a little bit embarrassing Because, or let me back up.
Say how you feel. Say it with your chest.
I know this is the I said it segment, huh? I'm supposed to just keep it real. Okay. It was embarrassing, but it was more than it was embarrassing. It was disheartening because, as I mentioned on the segment earlier with the economic development in Black community, folks have to now be aware. You know, there's no, what's the word? It's not honeymoon period. There's no pretending that there are not institutions of racism still very prevalent in our society, in which involuntary servitude via prisons is one, right? And so then now more than ever in recent history, it is very important for folks to be cognizant, and not just cognizant and not just speak truth to power, but be strategic. And in order to be strategic, folks have to figure out how to work together. Folks have to figure out how to put their personal feelings on the back burner. Folks have to figure out how not to have unnecessary pissing contests. Folks have to figure out how to stop looking down on one another and start to organize and build relationship, and not just think about one. It is more imperative for people of color to think beyond their individual selves, especially leaders in community, so that when you're making your political transactions, etc., you don't just think about you. Yeah, you think about you so that you can have power to maneuver and navigate for the broader community. But you can't just think about you. Time out for that. Because when something like the anti-slavery bill, that opportunity comes up, then the ground needs to already be laid. The ground needs to be fertile and wet. And the relationships need to be built and established so that when something as important as that comes up, then you can step back and put a strategy in place with diverse folks across the spectrum on various levels of government, in various positions of leadership, whether it's elected or not. And you come together and you strategize. There's no room for people being confused about language. How many legislators are attorneys?
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Dawn.
How in the world did that happen for language to get past all of those noses? Again, I'm not pointing fingers at one particular person. What I'm speaking of is indicative of a failure to organize on one of the most important pieces of legislation for Black folks in this state in a long time.
Mm-hmm.
We have to do better. And I'm going to include myself in that. I try my best. Wherever I may have fallen short, I pick myself up, I reach my hand out, and I say, let's try again. We all have to do that. Again, we have to get past pissing contests, and it's too many of them. We are not in any position to neglect relationships amongst each other and be power hungry, power drunk for the sake of our individual selves. We have to think bigger, because otherwise we will keep missing opportunities. And that's it. That's all I got on. Yeah, I said it. Did I say too much?
No, you didn't. No, you didn't.
All right. I speak in love. And see what I'm saying? Speaking in love is not just being ooey gooey and mushy. Sometimes it's just speaking the truth.
That's right.
And keeping it real. All right. So we love y'all. Thank you for joining us. We did a holiday edition, Thanksgiving, Christmas. Next time you'll see us will be at the top of the new year in 2023.
Yay. Happy holidays.
Yes, and after I pass the ball, then you'll see more of our podcast, but I got to focus and have priorities and stuff.
All right, girl.
All right, love y'all.
Merry Christmas, everybody.
Merry Christmas.
Bye.